This could be one of the worst golf clubs that you put in your golf bag. And just because these guys can use this club to great effect, I want to run a little test to see if you're making the game harder for yourself, or if actually you meet the criteria. Now I've got two of my favorite choices here when it comes to this particular category, but I think we should probably answer the question why everyone had one of these clubs in the bag and it worked, and nowadays I hardly ever recommend this golf club. And it has a lot to do with this little thing right here. Not Vice in particular, but just all golf balls, because 25 years ago, the amount of spin that they produced warranted this particular club. Actually even warranted clubs just like this one. And I'm sure some of you that are watching this video that have played for more than 30 years will remember using a 3-iron in the bag in the set. There's a good reason why most iron sets now come at 5-iron as standard, and then we go to hybrids and woods. Not to mention these things, and one of my first picks for this video, have got a lot better at keeping the spin down from the fairway. Which is all well and good if you have a lot of ball speed, because if the launch stays up and you maintain that low spin, guess what? You're going to be hitting that ball a long way. Hence why if you're these guys and you're playing par 5s that are over 600 yards long, having that low spin off the fairway with incredible speed is an absolute weapon. However, today I want to answer, where do we draw the line in terms of club head speed? Which one is going to suit you better? And you will be shocked at which one I'd prefer to have in my bag, and maybe some tweaks that I'd make to it. I'm of course talking about the 3 fairway wood. And as we run through the interesting data in a minute, I want to show you guys why some of you love this and some of you, well, hate it. And it all comes down to spin. And the rough guide we're gonna go for today is between 3,000 RPM and 3,500. Backspin plays a huge part in whether this club is good for you or not good for you. I'll show you rough prices of both these fairway woods. The 917 F2 is just outrageous value, to be perfectly honest. I have a Tour X stiff shaft in it, however, and on the polar opposite corner, we have an M6D type. 19 degrees, 5 wood, going to be shorter length in shaft, and we have an A-Flex, incredibly light little shaft in here. But as we ramp up the speed, you'll understand how much launch is our friend, and for some of you, of course, you produce too much backspin, so therefore you know which fairway wood you're going to want to lean towards. To be fair, that is an awful strike to start off with. Horrendous strike, but actually that's going to just prove my point. Oh, that was lovely. That was phenomenal. That is exactly what we're after. Before I show you the data of that one, I think it's only fair that we hit the 917 straight away. And of course the shafts are different, but I really want this big gap between the two, because then we can actually see some clear data and I can give you some very clear suggestions. Still keeping with around that 90-mile-an-hour club head speed mark. Well, that's a good start, to be fair. Slightly fast, however. It's a good strike. It's what we like to see, 89.9. I'm going to hit a couple more good ones with the M6. It didn't really do it a great fair test. That's one of them. That's 2 of them. Now, looking at that, you might think, well, there's not really much to talk about there, is there? Well, let me show you the numbers. As I said at the start of the video, the jobs of these clubs is to get us down the middle of the fairway and also get us out of danger. And just to prove that I swung these clubs very similar speed to each other, we got virtually the same carry and same distance. But let me explain why the 5 wood should be in the bag. And it's all about this number right here. And I don't spin the ball a lot anyway, and we'll talk about that in a minute and the detriment that it has to my game. But it really depends if you just want a fairway finder, or do you want a club that can do multiple things? Because this would not be able to be hit out the rough. The launch is already too low. This is already too low with my numbers anyway. Spin is dangerously low. And if you're forever struggling with your 3-wood out the rough, then it's potentially time to get more loft. Even go to, let's say, a 7-wood. But it does make me chuckle when I have clients come in the room, have clubs like this, maybe a bit older actually, and they go, for whatever reason, this thing is just perfect for me. And in my eyes, it's because an older 3-wood, especially 20 odd years ago, was producing the same amount of spin as a low spinning 5-wood. I mean, this isn't deemed a low spinning, but compared to this back in the day, it would be. And that particular client is able to get 3,000 worth of backspin. A lot of the times, these guys have been fitted into a brand new one that they teed up slightly in the fitting and they hit it 20 yards further, 25 yards further on the good one. But they didn't get to hit it out the rough. They didn't get to hit it on their wet, windy golf course. But the bad shots would have been that much worse compared to maybe something like this. So let's get into the next test. And we can talk about ballpark figure of speeds, even though there are variables, but I have a pretty good number in mind. And the reason that I say that is that I'm going to swing this 5-wood again at 90 miles an hour, like we've just shown. You've seen my spin with my technique. However, I'm now going to do over the top. Club face very open, very flippy. Something a bit like that. But notice with that technique, much faster than the other ones that we just hit a minute ago, more spin, 4,000. Potentially, if I hadn't hit it a tiny bit heavy, that would have been even higher. Now, of course, don't get Torx stiff in your 3-wood, but if you know you come over the top, you know you spin the ball a lot, then yes, okay, I'm on board with a 3-wood. As I said, 3,000 to 3,500 is basically the sweet spot when it comes to a 3-wood. And just like the last test, this spinning lower with my technique, this would also spin lower with that technique. Brings us on to test 2, and my ballpark figure for a 3 fairway wood, stiff flex, just normal, is about 100 miles an hour. I mean, that's 109, and actually you'll see why I'm putting a 5-wood in my bag this year. I do the opposite of that over-the-top golfer and steepness. I actually come too much on the inside, too much up on it, which drops my spin because my face is so close on the downswing. And with this Seniors Flex D-type 5 fairway wood, I mean, I've just hit that 280 odd yards. Sadly, that is not the golf club. The dangers of being stuck on the inside. Better. Okay, 917 up. This thing is an absolute monster. There's 2 things playing a huge part here, hence why, again, tour pros use 3-woods, and also help you guys that are probably fast enough, i.e. 100 miles an hour, why you should still go for a 5-wood. I am just going to delete that kind of toe shank out to the right-hand side, as that doesn't really prove much for this test. Firstly, we're going to talk about shafts, and obviously this having a Torx stiff, it just felt better in my hand, there's no question. It's got nothing to do with loft or head type, but even so, more neutral with the X stiff. Again, I just felt like I could come through it a lot better. And number 2, with that light whippy shaft, of course the club head wanted to turn. It was a D-type head. It wanted to finish out here, which is probably one of the reasons why I kept trying to drop the club more on the inside subconsciously. However, both clubs at my speed, as I said, I don't spin the ball a lot. We're within that 3,000 to 3,500, or let's say 4,000 on the high end. And of course, the 3-wood went further, even though it finished more out to the right hand side. Again, if I'd hooked this 3-wood, it would have been even further. But again, I quite like that miss to the right hand side, as that's just safe for me. Being said, I'm not a tour professional, and I'm never going to have shots into the green that are 270, 280 yards long. Therefore, I want more backspin to give myself that tighter dispersion. Maybe not a D-type head, and certainly not a Seniors Flex shaft, but if I put both these together, if I put this shaft in this head with a bit more of a neutral head, that's the kind of Frankenstein club I'm going to be looking for 2025. My point is, even though these are so polar opposite, and if you put money on it, a lot of you would have said the 3-wood on the good shot is going to go that much further. It's just not true because technology's moved on and so has the ball. Therefore, just because the pros can use a 3-wood to great effect, I highly recommend a lot of you skip it and start with a 5-wood or even a 7-wood. Guys, thank you ever so much for watching. If you've got any questions, sasgolfacademy.com. Catch you guys now.